to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Nobody watches you closer than those that don't like you. Give them a damn show.
And Dale Hummel.
It isn't what we say or think that defines us, but rather what we do.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, where would you like to start current events today?
I don't care. I mean, there's not that much going on other than your brother Joe has now forgiven all student debt loan, or he thinks he's going to get to. He's not really going to get to, but he's telling people he is. And if this is actually goes down and found to be legal, it's somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion that we, the taxpayers, will pay.
Yes, and that is the equivalent of $10,000 per student loan, or if you received a Pell Grant during college and had a student loan, you can get up to $20,000 if you make under $125,000 a year salary. Irregardless of any of that, it is absolutely ridiculous that those that did not sign the loan paperwork, had nothing to do with the loan, will not benefit from the loan, are paying it back.
Well, this is what I don't understand. And very intelligent person, and a Democrat, by the way, who has worked in almost every Democratic administration lately. He went on CNN and he's like, not only is this terrible policy, it's terrible politics. I mean, this is a Democrat. He said, what he has done is he has alienated everyone who never went to college, everyone who never thought they could afford to go to college, and then all of the people that went to a college and found a way to pay for it or paid back their student loan. He says, I don't understand what my party is doing, was his exact words.
And statistically, he is correct. I'm going to say it's tenfold or more the people you describe versus those that are actually getting the benefit right now.
The only people this is going to help are people that right now still have student loans, whatever. And that is the age demographic of people that vote the less.
I can see that. My son, Dylan, just graduated this past spring. He has a student loan for slightly over $10,000, and he will be eligible for this. And I told him, absolutely, jump on board. If you're eligible for it, take it. The good thing is I'm absolutely positive that will not change his vote. And I think there'll be some of those, but there'll be plenty. When you give them money like that, they will maybe go vote, maybe not.
Well, there's several Democrats that have spoken out that said that they don't think this, because the applications don't even start till October, and think that this will be way up in the courts by then, and that he legally could not do this.
No, that makes sense. Maybe on the surface, he thinks the perception of doing it will gain him votes, where if I'm with you, if you think deeper, I think it alienates more people than it helps.
Well, Joe's not known for deep thinking.
No, and I'm...
Oh, and I want to point out, and they showed the highlight reel of this, Nancy Pelosi stated herself that Joe Biden could not do this alone.
Yes, I saw that. It wasn't that long ago, I don't think.
No, like a few months.
No, executive order. If this were to go through, it's the biggest spending executive order in history, which, I mean, and they're saying, well, we don't know for sure how many people will apply. If you have a student
loan,
yes, if you owe more than $10,000 or anything on a student loan, I'm not going to say everyone, but 99% of the population have a student loan, I think will probably apply for it.
Yeah, you'd be real dumb not to.
So with this, Ryan, and it frustrates me. I think there's something.
It frustrates you, but you're telling Dylan to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it's out there, I'm going to encourage anybody that's listening. If you have the student loan and this is going to help you, you may as well allow it to help you rather than just helping the left. I think we need to. Oh my God! Throw it out. I can't
believe you're saying that.
No, I am all. Why let it just benefit the left? If it's going to go through and we're going to pay for it,
it doesn't benefit everybody. Everyone's paying for it.
I understand that everybody's paying for it, and it benefits both conservative and, I shouldn't say benefits it. It benefits
no one.
It forgives the student loan of those students. I believe it has some benefit to those individuals. I don't agree with it at all in any manner. I think it's the most absurd thing. And I hope that gentleman that you quoted is right, that it alienates far more people than it brings aboard for Joe, because it's ridiculous. And to a level that my even
stop,
larger,
Dale, just stop.
Larger fear is what precedents to set. What about 3 years from now? And you have new graduates saying, hey, what about mine?
Does Dylan pay taxes?
He does.
Okay. So Dylan's going to have to pay for this. So why would you tell Dylan to go get this done when he's going to have to help pay for it?
It's not even a thought. If you're eligible for that, it's just like what about the COVID business support? I took the COVID business support because it was being given out and a lot of it was fraudulent. If you don't, all you're doing is the government is giving your money directly left and you get nothing back. This way you're at least trying. So this is, you have no concept of economics here. You're not making any sense at all. If that money is going to be given out, you probably better take that share because you're darn sure going to be paying it in taxes, irregardless of whether you take it or not. If you could go out there and I could dictate that nobody took it, absolutely. I'd say this program doesn't need to exist, period. But when he's eligible to forgive $10,000 of student loan, when I heard a number, and I don't know if it's accurate, so I probably shouldn't even quote it, that it's going to cost each taxpayer, if everybody applies, which I think most will, it'll cost taxpayers $2,000 each over some period of time. I also do not believe, I'm with you, Ryan. I do not believe that this is legal. I think the courts will probably shut it down, but I'm to the point now where I just don't know. The Department of Justice, the FBI, what's the weaponization politically of the FBI and the Department of Justice. I'm not sure that things are like they were in the past. So I don't know what's legal and what's not anymore.
Speaking of your government agencies, because we're not going to agree on this topic, so we need to move on. So they were talking about the new 87,000 IRS agents today and how Joe promised that no one making under $400,000 a year would get taxed or all this other stuff. So I didn't know this till, I guess, this morning. A Republican congressman from Idaho, when they were doing this deal, said, okay, so this is what y'all said. No one under $400,000 going to get taxed, whatever all this else. He says, so when we're passing this, let's put in an amendment that says no one who makes under $400,000 can be audited by the IRS with this new deal. Every Democrat in Congress voted no on that amendment.
To not audit anybody under 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
That one I don't know that it's realistic, but I don't know back to your term that nobody is taxed under 400,000. I promise you people under 400,000 are taxed.
Yes, I know, but that is what that was his campaign promise, all this other stuff, that no
additional taxes, I'm assuming is what he was meaning to say.
Dale, yeah, everyone in America, regardless of what they pay, has to pay taxes. Yeah. He said, did you not pay attention to the campaign at all? I mean, like... No,
I don't, you're confusing me totally here saying that nobody under 400,000 gets taxed.
He said no one under $400,000 would get increased taxes.
Increase, there. You have to use the word increase. You did not use that earlier.
Oh my God. Anyway,
I am with you that he was on the campaign. I thought it was 250,000 at one point.
No, it was 400,000. It's always been 400,000.
And I agree. This number, I forgot what the cost of this number of auditors are going to be, but I am under the assumption that you're going to audit. I'm going to go back to the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Internal Revenue Service. That those that are on the conservative side and have some political influence are probably going to get hit harder than those that are not. And I think everybody is going to get audited for the most part, irregardless of where their income is. That is what the whole thing that the Republican was trying to do, is that these new 87,000 new IRS employees said, y'all said no one that makes less than whatever. Oh God, you've got me so less than 400,000 shouldn't be audited. Right. With these new 87,000 employees, and every Democrat in
the Congress voted no.
I think that and I had not heard about that, but wouldn't you think that would be a very strong point to get out to the public? Is I'm going to venture to guess that 90% of the public make less than that.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. By and large, the amount of taxes that the government takes in this is a middle-class country still. And so, yeah, they're going to get taxed, they're going to get audited and all this other stuff with these new 187,000 employees.
I wish I knew, and I don't have the numbers. Maybe you're aware. That's a huge number of additional employees. I'm curious, how many do they have right now? I just don't know proportionally.
I have no idea.
But that is, I mean, I don't know if it's doubling or I have no idea what it is. But that is a staggering number, in my opinion. That is, I assure you, when there's that many more people getting audited, they're not going to be very happy about going through that process, whether they owe or get money back or whatever it is. It's just the process that is a pain in the ass. I hope they hang that back on Joe and the Democrat. That's what I hope.
Joe's creating jobs. Duh.
Joe is doing something. Did you get a chance? I'm sure you saw it on the news, and I didn't hear the actual episode of Joe Rogan when Zuckerberg came on and basically.
In 2021, 81,600 people worked for the IRS.
So he's doubling it.
More than doubling.
That's a lot. And I know there were numbers attached to it, how much that was going to cost the taxpayers to get more audits. It's just very ironic to me.
It spent $13.7 billion in 2021 and had 81,600 employees at about $168,000 per employee. That's in 2021.
That's going to be a lot of money. You're going to pay a lot of tax dollars to get yourself audited. Mm-hmm. I wanted to remind the world that Zuckerberg did come on Joe Rogan and talk about Hunter Biden's laptop story and the FBI giving Facebook how did he word that? A warning that there's maybe a lot of false information coming through, so they dampened down the laptop story. I think all of this probably came out earlier, but was not publicized as heavily. Would that be how you saw it, Ryan?
I didn't know anything about. I don't pay it. I'm not a Rogan person like you. I don't pay attention to Rogan or Zuckerberg.
Well,
or anything like
it's
that.
been on the news that you wouldn't. I never even listened to that episode.
Seen it.
So Zuckerberg came on, and I appreciate the position that Rogan put him in. He basically asked him point blank, did your algorithms decrease the Hunter Biden laptop story from getting out? And he basically answered yes. He said it wasn't to the extreme of maybe Twitter or some other social media platforms, but it did dampen it. It lessened how much it got out, but they still allowed people to share it. Well, it doesn't matter if you can share it if that algorithm's not going to let it out anyway. For the most part, it's still limiting severely how many people see it, and that is incredible, especially after the Trump-Russia collusion hoax and all of that was tampered with the FBI, knowing that it wasn't accurate. I'm very, very concerned that we're in a situation and we're going a very bad direction when the raid on Trump's residence and many other things that are being used from Russia collusion all the way through now, that the FBI, along with the Department of Justice, I think they're being used for political purposes. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to be biased. I just believe that at this point in time, it is being done. And once that is done, you become into it almost can become a dictatorship. Maybe there's not a proper term for it, and I don't know that it's going to be Joe Biden that's a dictator, but the Democrat Party in general. Very concerning to me.
There you go.
So with that, and you're hearing a little more about equal opportunity. And Ryan, I think you and I are always in favor of equal opportunity, but not necessarily equality. And when I say that,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
When I say that, and people get it confused, and I'm going to bring it up just because I think our freedoms are being questioned and weaponization of some of the governmental agencies. So when I say that, we have the left coming out, and to me, it appears as though they're pushing for equality, such as socialism, or even with the weaponization through the FBI and so forth, almost pushing on communism. But when I say I'm in favor of equal opportunity, everybody, and I think that's where we've been historically, if you bust your butt and take advantage of opportunities afforded to you, you will succeed in this country. You have the the opportunity to succeed. When we talk about equality, irregardless of whether you succeed or not, you should not be allowed to do any better than somebody else that's put out no effort. And nothing more than socialism is, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I have never witnessed in my lifetime a faster pace towards socialism than what I've seen in the past couple of years, and it concerns me deeply.
Okay, I'm lost here, but whatever.
I'm concerned about the left turning us into a socialist country. How's that?
Okay, that's not been a new concern.
No, not new, but continues to deepen, and we aren't changing direction.
What does that have to do with equality?
Equality means that.
Did you take your pills today?
I did. Equality I'm just defining. People are getting confused. We want everybody to have equality.
No, I think you're confused. But
okay, what about the Solomon Islands? Did you hear anything about that recently?
No.
Just
don't know anything about that.
Kind of off the coast of Australia. When I say off the coast, 1,200 miles. One of our naval ships, maybe even a national, I don't know which ship, one of our military ships asked to enter their waters to get fuel or something. Nothing that we haven't done in the past, and we've had a decent relationship with them. They ignored that request, didn't even answer the request, so the ship had to go somewhere else. Well, it turns out that China has now signed what they call a security agreement with the Solomon Islands, basically to protect them. Who do you think they're protecting them from?
I don't know who they're protecting them from, but that's real obvious. They're just doing this so when there's a war, they'll be on China's side.
That's exactly what it comes down to. I think, I don't know if it's called China blackmailing, but they're presenting them this agreement saying, okay, you either sign this and we slowly take you over peacefully, or you don't sign it and you're next to be taken over militarily. So I don't think they really had a choice in the situation, but I'm afraid we're going to continue to see this. And this is, I don't know how many miles from China, but I'm going to say 1,000, 2,000. I mean, they're reaching way out. We're not just talking about their general area. They're going quite a ways.
Where Taiwan is very close. This is not
very close. Yes, very, very much so. So I don't know. I hear there's some bombs causing nuclear issues in Ukraine as well with their nuclear plants.
Oh,
worried about a leak and destroying things. It's not.
That's
and
good.
That's the only thing I've heard on the Ukraine, but it appears to be serious. And the craziness of it all. So Ukraine says, well, it's Russia's missiles that are coming close and disrupting the functioning of this nuclear plant. Well, guess what Russia says? It's Ukraine bombing their own nuclear plant. It's amazing the lies that are put out there. Just amazing.
I don't know who to believe. I'm just going to be real honest.
Oh, on this one, I see no justification for Ukraine bombing their own plant and causing a meltdown.
Yeah, but you don't see a lot of justification for a lot of things that these idiots over there do, and they do it anyway. But yeah, the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, again, it's still, I do not understand why we have this war's continuing to go on. Ukraine has no chance. No one is everybody did all this. All these countries did all these things, but they wouldn't do what they had to do to prevent this from happening. And so Putin's going to win. And so everybody lost all this money, all this military arsenal, all these things that we sent over there. All these lives are done. Why did we do all this?
I don't know.
Exactly.
You hit it really well. We gave them help to slow the matter,
but we did not do what it took to prevent it.
Correct.
No one did.
Correct.
No one did. And the whole thing is, if we would have just said, you know what, we're not going to get in this, whatever, this is between y'all. And I'm not saying that's not the right way either. You either go in, you take charge of the situation because you knew Ukraine wasn't going to be able to do it, or you stay out of it. But either way, that would have happened, a lot more lives would have been lost.
Yeah, I do not know. And I do know that because we were not in a position of strength from a world perspective, I think that gave Putin more armor to go, or more confidence that he could go in and do what he's doing. So because of where the United States' standing is in the world at the moment, or when that started, I don't think there was anything we could do to change it. I think we cost Russia more money because of helping out Ukraine. I think went backwards financially, but because of high oil prices and China assisting Russia, it doesn't matter. We could try to bleed them down, but the oil and the Chinese money is going to flow in there to repair anything we could have done. It's just a terribly, terribly bad situation.
Well, I only have one funny thing for current events, but anyway, Breitbart News is releasing a film on September 7th called My Son Hunter. Now, it does cost $22, but I've watched the trailers and everything, and basically it is about all things Hunter, Joe, the laptop, the hookers, all of it. And so anyway, I paid the $22. Of course, Dale is offended that I don't know where the $22 is going. I don't care where it's going. It's still America. People can make a movie and I can pay for it.
They can. I was just
MySonHunter.com
may go to the prosecution of Hunter. I was hopeful that $1 of it would. No. I will donate some to the prosecution and when I buy and purchase the movie.
And then again, I don't know if this matters or we're 3 weeks after they raided Mar-a-Lago. They released the thing that it's so redacted you can't tell anything, just like most people thought it would be. But there is a judge that is going to listen to things on Thursday, but her initial whatever you call it ruling is that a independent master is supposed to go over the documents that have been retrieved from Mar-a-Lago and go through them and decide what can be used and what needs to be returned to Trump.
Yeah, it appears to be they use what they call a general search warrant just to find issues and something about that not even being legal. It's an absolute mess, and I think it's part of this weaponization of the Department of Justice, and there's no explanation for this, and maybe I'll be proven wrong when all of this comes out, but I just don't see that whatever was there rose to the level of a raid such as that. That's where I'm at. I think it was nothing more than let's throw Trump out in the news for maybe doing something terrible before the fall elections, and that is it, plain and simple. Nothing beyond that. Maybe a technicality that he took a document that was supposed to be in the archives, but I can't find anything else. And I would like to congratulate Beetlejuice.
What did Beetlejuice do?
I've been there into the Chicago O'Hare Airport many times this week, and I came out uninjured, but there were 7 dead this weekend and 23 injured, which I think is less than usual for Chicago for the weekend.
So that's why you're congratulating her. Oh.
She's doing such a fine job.
Well, that's good.
Do you have any BTR JLA news?
Yeah, I want to thank our latest national corporate sponsor, Brock Farms Angus. Brock Farms Angus is a 4th-generation family farm located 45 minutes west of Indianapolis in the town of Stylesville, Indiana. David and Chris Brock, with their children Andy and Katie, maintain a herd of 150 commercial and Angus cattle, focused on raising genetically superior cattle and striving to balance phenotype and production. Brock Farms Angus cattle offers breeding stock, feeder calves, and freezer beef. This is the people that you can go buy a replacement heifer and a ribeye steak. I think it's a cool idea. But they have lots of progressive ways to keep their herd up to date. Brock Farms Angus cattle believes in helping the youth be successful with their projects, whether they are purchasing steers or heifers from them or just believing and supporting the program. And they know that the important lessons that it has taught their children, and they want to help others. So we really appreciate Brock Farms Angus cattle for their support of the BTR JLA because they are a national corporate sponsor. And since we are almost into September, almost, not quite, but almost, I'm going to do the top 10 cattle this week. And the winner in the lead right now is Grace Grosetta of Cottonwood, Arizona. Second is Jody Mead of McPherson, Kansas. Third is Addison Poe of Stephenville, Texas. Fourth is Faith Campa of Golden Valley, Arizona. Fifth is Dallas Ritchie of LaPorte, Indiana. Sixth is Cole Van Meter of Monon, Indiana. Seventh is Kenley Stow of Marana, Arizona. Eighth is Heston Fuller of Richfield, Idaho. Ninth is Jack Winter of Bath, Indiana. And 10th is Bailey Stow of Marana, Arizona. So there's that.
Congratulations, the top 10.
There you go.
The American-made ShowFresh H2O is our episode sponsor, and it is greatly appreciated. Put yourself in a position to keep your show stock fully hydrated when on the road with a simple application of Fresh H2O. ShowFresh H2O can be purchased online at swampfox.com or at your local supply trailer. Thank you for your continued support of the youth livestock industry. The main topic, why judges do what they do. I don't know, Ron. Ryan, do you know?
This is your topic, so you came up with this.
So many things that they do.
So we can just go which way you want to, because I'm going to be real honest. I think this is a stupid topic, but he doesn't get many, so I'm letting him have one.
I want to talk about why we or judges even accept shows, or why do they go out and do shows, and then even venture into what type of animals that we're utilizing in those shows, or why. One judge, we talk about it. You hear about it every show we go to. There's going to be a speech about the grand drive or in a class that this may not be how you and the audience see it, or another judge is going to come in here and place it a different way. I think just hitting on some of those points on why judges select different animals. Why does this judge fly across the country to go judge a show? And I think that the first place that I would like to start, Ryan, do you judge shows for the money?
No.
Do you sometimes make money and sometimes lose money judging shows?
Very few times do I but you're misleading people, because first off, I tell people, because I'm in a unique position, that if they cover my expenses, I'll come judge your show. Now, most people don't do that because they can't leave during the week. They have jobs that make them stay there. All these other things. So, like, my example is not a good one. Now, I do not think, by and large, the majority of people that judge make money judging shows. I think more of them. I don't think many people lose money judging shows, but don't think you make money.
And I don't know if I'm sure some of our listeners understand this, but there's a huge fluctuation in what shows are able to pay judges. And when I bring this back to why judges do what they do, I can good, bad, or indifferent, when I first started judging shows in college, I wanted to judge shows. I enjoyed judging shows, but I probably accepted more shows with the hopes that I was making a little bit of money to help put me through college. And at that time, when it wasn't a lot relative to today's standards, but it did help me get through college. I know there's some students that are doing a lot of county shows just trying to gain a little bit of extra money to do that. So outside of a situation like that, I don't think that there's anybody judging these shows to make money, because it just, I'm not saying, Ryan, and we've discussed this, you occasionally hit a county fair that pays an incredible amount compared to others, or you may go to a state fair for some reason that's much, much higher than the rest. But in a situation that most people are in, if I have to be away from home, or somebody has to take off of work, or the downside of replacing what you were going to be doing at home, take that into consideration. I'm going to go on record and say most judges, by traveling to that show and taking the time to do that, are putting themselves in a position where they're probably losing money, or putting themselves seriously behind in terms of what they need to get done at home. So
what they need to get done at home, yes. I don't think many people take judging jobs knowing they're going to lose money. Well, now, will they know that they'll be behind and doing other things? Absolutely.
Yes, not lose money from a standpoint of what it cost them to get the show back, but rather the loss because of the loss of money because they're behind on things at home, and that's hard to put a number on or anything like that. But I think our listeners understand that. So I want to take the money thing for the most part out of the picture. So I don't want somebody saying, well, he's doing that show because he's getting paid for it. I do want to use an example. And
I'm going to tell you one thing. It's going to surprise a whole lot of people. The larger and more prestigious of the show, they normally pay less.
No, and I believe that to be true. And part of it is they can get away with it because a lot of judges would prefer to do one of those shows. It's more prestigious and all these things. Illinois State Fair, I'm going to pick on them a little bit. This year, and I knew it's always been an issue, you do not get paid very much to judge the Illinois State Fair, period.
Nope.
This year, the fair management beyond not our superintendents of the livestock shows, but the actual fair management decided they didn't even want to cover the hotel room, Ryan, for these people. And we're not saying we're giving you a flat amount, but what are your expenses? And then you maybe get $100 or something in a sad amount, where some of the judges actually turned it down because it wasn't even coming close to covering their expenses. I believe one judge stayed on grounds in somebody's RV because there was no money for a hotel room. And I look at this fair and the millions of dollars that are spent on it, and they can't afford to pay for a judge's hotel room. Amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. So there is a lot of variation. And I've gone to a couple shows, Ryan, that I came back and I'm similar to you. I rarely say, well, I want this much, but I took your lead on it and said, well, cover my expenses. And if you anything over that, great. But I understand you're on a budget, or your show is going to bring X amount, whatever it is. But once in a while, you'll get back in the car, or when you open that check or that envelope and you think, wow, that's considerably more than I expected. More times than not, it's going to be from a smaller jackpot show, or maybe even a county fair that has quite a bit of support. I don't know that that's coming very often from a state fair or a national level show. And Illinois State Fair is probably the worst example to use because they pay near nothing to come in and judge. You almost better want to do it and plan on volunteering not only your time, but a little bit of your money to do it. What other reasons? Recognition within the industry. When you were younger, I think it's almost a validation that if you're judging a certain level of shows that you've made it, that the time you've spent through livestock judging or life experiences, that somebody is willing to hire you for your experience and knowledge. So I think that comes into play. And there's one more that I want to talk about that maybe is not going to be popular, but I believe to be real, and it's to gain political relevance. Do you see anything there, Ryan?
Oh, I mean, the whole system is, if I judge this one, then they're judging the next. I mean, and not all of it, but there is a lot of, especially when you get into some of this open breeding stuff. And I'm not saying it doesn't cross over everywhere, but like, well, I'm judging this show and he's judging the next show. So yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of it that is there. But there's also something you're completely missing out on.
I'm not finished, but go ahead.
Okay.
No, continue.
Well, then just let's
I want to
pick up with this.
I want to hit just a little bit before you bring that one up. Just on the political relevance, and Ryan, you stated, I don't need to restate what it is. But that is real. It's at the open shows. It's even at the junior show level. I think it sometimes you see it more in one species than the other, or even if you're out there judging shows as a breeder, if I'm out there and I'm more visible, maybe that in doing a decent job, that's going to build your brand. You may be exposing yourself to more potential clients. There's a lot of things that come into play. And because this is something hard, it's very hard for show management, and they don't understand all the levels of connections and things like that are involved. But it's hard because you want to bring those breeders in. You want to bring those people that have been maybe judging coaches or shown a lot. You want to bring people in that have ability to evaluate livestock. And unfortunately, in some of those segments, there's no way to get around it, but those people are going to be either raising animals themselves or connected in some manner to the livestock industry if they're relevant at all. So it's a very difficult situation. The only solution to it is when that judge steps in the ring, and Ryan, I don't know, I think the first time I heard you say it was at Arizona. You take it as a responsibility.
I do, yes,
to describe those animals accurately and place them to the best of your ability. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you're doing what you believe to be right and describing them the best you possibly can.
Yeah.
We would hope that other judges can come into the ring, and if they could block out their affiliation with breeder A or breeder B or this broker or this family, that's great. But it's just very difficult. I think the judging pool in terms of people that can go in there and do that is probably more limited than what I had realized at one time. And maybe that's because we're not reaching down and using some of the younger judges. But if you go down and do some of those things, guess what a younger judge is? I mean, when you're a younger judge and you get that first decent sized jackpot show or that state fair or whatever it may be, kind of your first, what you consider to be a bigger one, unfortunately, sometimes you're more worried about who do you need to keep happy to get the next one rather than doing what's right. And I give advice to them all that if you go out and do what's right, that is more likely to get you the next show than trying to play some game.
I don't think they believe that, though.
No, I don't. I give this speech a lot, and you're probably right. I don't think they do. But don't you think? And I'm not, maybe not instantly, but long term, if we've got a judge out there, a handful of judges in each species, that all of a sudden is getting a reputation for sorting livestock how they like them, without any political pressures coming into play whatsoever, and they do a good job working with the kids. And that starts to stick, that they're not playing political games. I don't care who their buddy is. They just aren't doing it. Don't you think long-term that's going to get them more jobs?
I think there's a lot of very valid points to say that yes, on the long term, yes, you will get a lot more jobs. I don't think for the most part, to most people who judge, it's not about getting more jobs. It's about getting the jobs they want.
Agreed. I should rephrase that. That is what I meant.
Because again, not everybody can spend all this time on the road doing this to get the jobs they want. I would disagree with you on the fact that doing the right thing and going out there and being good with the kids, that doesn't get you the jobs you want. Because there is a handful of people that have influence on who gets those very prestigious jobs, and that handful of people does not want somebody that goes in there and does it the right way. They want somebody that might be beneficial to them.
Agreed completely. And I guess I should back it up. And again, I'm not saying that every show is going to be influenced by something like that, but there are more than I would like to see. And you're right. There's not necessarily, think about the show management and the superintendent. And there's some show managers that have been in the business and in the industry, and they get it. They understand all of it. There are others that are in that position that may be very good at organization and the business side, but they have to rely on somebody to guide them. And whoever that influencer may be, that is oftentimes looking out for their own well-being or their buddy's well-being. Is that what we're getting at?
No, I'm just calling a spade a spade. It's just how it is. The people that have influence to get those really big, prestigious jobs, they don't always want somebody that's just going to go out there and do exactly what they want to do and not worry about anything. I mean, I touched on this a couple weeks ago. Like, all the people saying, oh, well, I got you this job, or the reason that people tell you they got you that job is for a reason.
You're just not happy that they did it for you? Is that the reason, Ryan?
They're not just no. No.
I got it. I think everybody knows where you're at on that one. So I'm going to take it back around. If the show officials give the exhibitors more input, and we've talked about this through an entire episode, then the theory that if you go out there and do a fair job consistently, one after another.
Absolutely. If the exhibitors had as much input or more than everybody else, then yes, that's absolutely right. But Dale, that's not the situation.
No, but we need to promote that to happen more, because I think that is the healthiest direction for our industry to take. And I'm not saying give the exhibitors full control of things, but they are the customer. Those are the show families that are traveling up and down the road. They need to have some input, and they're the ones in the trenches that know that Judge X is connected to families A, B, C, and D, and all of those different scenarios. It's the people out there showing every weekend or going to all those national shows that see those things. Give them some input. Give them a list to vote on. Give them something, and make it in a manner that it's clean and clear and easy and no issues. I'm not talking about a popularity contest on Facebook. I'm talking about put something on the way card that they circle the name that they would like for the following year. I realize that the judges may not be available, but we can go to the second one then, or so forth. Or if you don't want to have them make the final decision, get 4 names from your exhibitors, or have them nominate at least who's going to be selected by that official committee. Some manner. We have to bring exhibitor involvement. And I encourage all of our listeners out there that are exhibitors or are show families go to your management and have a civil discussion about this and say, hey, how can we have more input? What can we do to make this more exhibitor friendly, or that we can have some say in who's judging our show or how the show's even run to a certain degree. I think if we go down that path, we are going to have a much, much healthier industry, because the number one thing I hear when standing ringside at any of these livestock shows, the topic, unfortunately, instead of being about that kid has a good animal or this and that, it's about who's politically correct in this class, who's going to get this division. Those type of things are what I'm hearing ringside. And that's the furthest thing from healthy and the furthest thing from what we all preach this industry does for our youth. So let's make it simple and take it down a much better path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds great.
Enough preaching.
I've said this, you've said this, whatever, and there is some change starting to happen, but I have never understood why the exhibitor families who are the customers have no input on who gets to judge these shows. And we've had a whole podcast about this, is that in every other industry, by and large, the customer is always right, except this one. And yet we have still had a very successful, thriving industry despite that. And so what I don't understand is if we did cater more to the customers, aka the exhibitors, how much better could we be?
Agreed. Completely. And I think it's considerably better. Right now, if the management's not willing to listen to the show families, the exhibitors, then the show families need to stop and think about, do I want to go to show A or B, and make that choice? Which one is maybe catering to that exhibitor and doing what they believe is the best path, and basically you showing up becomes your vote. I hope it can go much further than that. But Ryan, and I'm not going to mention any shows, but I can think on the national scene, shows that are more exhibitor friendly or allow the exhibitors to enjoy that show, however you want to word it. There's definitely shifts one way or another in terms of animal numbers at these given shows. And I think that's the only way we've kind of had a vote. And I don't know that it's really been public. And again, Ryan and I are here. We can't make these shows do that. All we can do is put out an idea, and hopefully those show families start talking about it and it gets a little bit of momentum. And it's you on the ground level at those shows, visiting with the show management, not being real negative, just saying, hey, what can we do to have some input? Or have you ever thought about doing this? It might increase numbers. There's so many things. I know numbers at some state fairs are way down. I know numbers at some county fairs are down. Occasionally you'll see one fair saying, well, their numbers are up. But I think right now we are teetering that we're probably losing some numbers industry wide. And I think we could gain all of those back and so much more if we can even make this industry better. And that's my best recommendation on how to make the industry better. Ryan, let's move on. Why judges select the type of animal they do?
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
No. You're not getting off that easy.
Please go.
So all this, why do judges take shows? I think you've missed a really big one.
Oh, I've got one written here that I did not bring
Ego.
up. Oh, and I've got another one.
Ego.
Yes, the godlike feeling.
That is.
Well, I think prestigious maybe comes into that a little bit.
No, ego, flat ass ego. That is number one. That is it. And I don't, that's just how it is. I cannot explain to people. You do not know unless you have been out there and done it. But I promise you that having that moment where you control everything, all this other stuff, ego is the number one reason that people will do this by and large. The reason that you'll travel and miss 3 days in the field, all this other stuff, by and large, it's ego.
I'm not going to argue that one, but and again, I can't blanket everybody with that, but I
didn't say everybody.
Yeah, but I think it's a large
everybody.
Large contributor. And we never talked about what we're supposed to be doing it for, and that's for the youth and to try to benefit the youth. And I think that's assumed, but we probably ought to at least bring that up. And I do believe that there's people out there that will go judge a show because they want to give back, or they want to share what their experiences were and some of their knowledge with the youth and try to make it a positive experience. And that's a great reason for doing it.
It's what I try to do every single time I'm out there. But yeah,
multitude of reasons why judges are judging shows.
But There's just as many good reasons people judge shows for good reasons as they do bad reasons, and you don't need to sugarcoat it. And you're leaving out, probably, if you don't mention the ego thing, you're leaving out one of the biggest ones.
No, I think.
Well, you didn't want to bring it up because it wasn't on your list.
No, I just it wasn't something that. Yeah, I just going through it in my mind. I have various reasons, and I not arguing that that's part of it. Probably a big part of it, but I don't know when you talk about a young judge getting validated, maybe that comes into play. I look at ego. I compare it to, I see a parent in an airport, and there's this child and you see a lot of children misbehaving, but here's this child that really isn't doing anything wrong, and this parent is micromanaging and giving this child orders like I've never seen. When I see that, I think, well, this person has no control of anything else in their life besides this young child. Consequently, they're using every bit of their power or empowering themselves to tell them what to do. And I don't want to parallel that directly to the livestock ring or out there in the judging ring, but I think those that do it for the ego side of it are those that have less control of anything else in their life or power over anything else.
There you go.
Okay, why do we select the animals we do? I remember one episode somewhere or in our private conversations, we talked about it being a reflection of your past environment.
I think everything in life, I don't care if it's how you judge shows or how you tie your shoes or what, it's all because of two things: genetics and environment. Everything in life. And so, yes, depending on how you were brought up in this livestock industry, what worked for you, what you like, what you dislike. I'll just use me. I had to show a whole lot of line-bred zoo creatures because that is what was winning at the time. And structure didn't matter at all. And so I had to show lots of animals that were too straight-fronted, that you'd have to either hold them up or you'd have to kick their knee back in or cover up the front feet. I can list multitude of things because structure did not matter nearly as much back then. That is why it matters a great deal to me now, because I went through those experiences. Not saying that my animals weren't the best ones in the ring. The majority of the time they were, because that's where the industry was at, and structure was not something that was a big deal. But since I had to show them and try to show those flaws out of them, that is why structure is so important to me. So that in a nutshell right there sums that up.
I think that's a good reflection on your environment or your experiences impacting what you're doing today in the ring, period. Yeah. Now, that is crazy. I consider myself extreme, maybe more so than I should be on structure in the show ring, but it comes from completely different reasons where I would have never, without you saying that, and this is the second time that I've heard you talk about that. I actually was going to use that as an example. Without you saying that, I would have never dreamed that reason. If you said, why does Ryan Rash select for a better skeletal build and better movement in the show ring, I would not have come up with that. I would have used the more traditional sense, or in my mind, everything about skeletal build and effortless movement for longevity purposes in a breeding situation. But that is the best example there can be. And there's going to be so many examples or different things that those people out there in that show ring or that judge at that time have experienced that are going to influence what they're doing. It's almost impossible to fully understand what they're doing. So what we need to maybe focus on is, let's hope they describe the differences accurately and they're fairly consistent in where their priorities lie, because we can't expect them to go out there and necessarily judge it just like you would or like anyone else has. We've known this for years. We've talked about it a lot, but we still have difficulty as exhibitors, as people ringside, wondering why they're doing that. I wonder much less about why they're doing that if they describe them accurately and I know that they're seeing the differences. Then it becomes their priorities, and that's not something that's always going to be consistent.
I think why people do what they do not only yes, I think genetics in your environment, there are also bad reasons why people do what they do, and it's politics.
Yep.
And that's part of it. And that's that's not genetics, but that is still environment. They're in an environment where they're getting political pressure put on them to do something, and so sometimes they cave and do it and stuff like that. But you're talking about consistency. I find it very hard for people tell me, oh, you're such a great judge, you're the best judge, whatever, all this other stuff, or other people say, oh, that's a terrible judge, all this other stuff. I find it very hard to say whether someone is a great judge or a terrible judge, just because it is just an opinion. And I don't think you can be ranked good nor bad on your opinion.
You were hired for that opinion, so it is what it is.
I still don't think you can be ranked good or bad for your opinion. Now, what I do think that you can be ranked on or critiqued on or judged on is just what you're saying. Consistency, how you describe those animals. Do you describe them accurately? How you treat the children if it's a junior show, stuff like that. But I don't think anybody, and we are getting to a point that, like, it is just like, even if you go out there and consistent and do these things, there are going to be people that disagree with you, and that is fine. Because if we all had the same opinion, there'd be one show a year, there would be no fun in that. But I think we're losing sight a little bit of the fact that it's just an opinion. And even those people that go out there and consistent and describe them accurately, the people that don't win are still so pissed off. They're just like, no, he sucks, she sucks, because they didn't pick the kind of animal I had, and the kind of animal I had is the best. No, that's wrong. That is wrong. That's fundamentally wrong.
Agreed. I can take it a little bit different direction. This is all we talk about genetic environment. Most of these things are going to be our environments. If you're a breeder or you're in the business of breeding commercial livestock, show live, whatever it may be, the species that you're sorting you're likely to select a similar kind to what you breed. That's just normal. If that's the direction you're breeding or you want to go, you're probably going to select that type of animal. And that all makes sense. I think people understand that. You also may be in a situation where there's a certain trait you're trying to breed for that's very, very difficult. And occasionally you get there, and most of the time you do not. When you see that trait pop up in the show ring, you may give that a little higher priority than some others, because you're aware of the difficulty and the uniqueness of that one, because it is difficult to get there. I'm not saying it has any commercial application, anything like that, but you're aware that this is hard to make. And we hear judges talk about the one that's the hardest to make out here is this. And, and I right or wrong, that's their opinion. And I appreciate the hard to make ones because of just that. If they were all easy to make, we're going to have a dozen out there in our lineup that you could justify any of them, and they're all about the same. They're just nice. So unique comes into play there. And one thing, Ryan, we haven't talked about yet, how much influence do you think the average person out there judging shows, I'm going to say not all of them, but most of them have come through a collegiate judging program. How much influence did the coaches' priorities and what they were teaching them there, does that carry over with those individuals into the show ring?
There's some. I don't think it's a great deal, because I think now more than ever, I think those coaches are to the point. It's not back like where it was. We're like, it's my way or the highway. They much more worldly, I think, and tell them, there are things that work in the judging team world, and this whole nother podcast at certain contests. We all know that. But I think overall, yeah, a little of those traits are going to carry over. I don't think nearly as much as what it used to be. I think, when I was a kid, if you didn't know who the judge was but knew who their judging team coach was, you could pretty much base off that a great deal of how they were going to pick.
No, I agree. There's been
I don't
evolution.
think that's that way anymore.
But it was very strong for you. I mean, and it didn't always work, but majority of the time, what you're saying right there would put you in the right direction.
Right.
And now there's not as much of that. And I'm hoping, and I assume that the judging coaches, obviously they're programming them for a given contest and trying to direct them. But I hope it's as much or more about seeing differences in the skeleton and just differences in the animal and teaching them how to describe those differences to the general public or to another official or whatever it is. But I think it kind of fits in what we were talking about. Hopefully that they become better evaluators and better able to see differences in the livestock, and then in turn can convey that verbally rather than a certain priority is being beat into your head to try to win Louisville. Yeah, we're trying to maybe match. We may know what that official committee is, and we may bump a little harder towards soundness or muscling or whatever it may be, just making the assumption the committee might swing just a little bit that direction. So it's interesting. What if we bring in, and we don't see this very often, what about the judges that maybe have a strong commercial background? And I see this more outside of our country than here in the U.S. in whether they're commercial producers or producers that are selling heavily to the commercial world, and that's how they make their living, raising livestock of any species that fits into that commercial realm. They're going to come in and probably select livestock that are like that. So again, just another example of the environment. And I guess what I'm trying to do for the listeners out there is just being able to open your mind up even further that these judges come from such various backgrounds. There isn't an absolute. And as Ryan put it earlier, we can't judge their opinion on priorities of a muscular animal versus whatever it may be. And while I'm talking about that, and I'm going in too many directions here, sometimes I do hear the comment, Ryan, well, that judge isn't consistent. Well, I watched that same show and there wasn't enough animals that maybe fit what they wanted, that they had to jump around a little bit. So be careful with.
But what I mean by consistent, I mean people that judge show after show after show, and they always strive to find the same type. No, if you're at a county fair, you're not going to be able to be consistent. That's just all there is to it. Or a small jackpot show.
Don't look at that one class or even that one show.
Right.
Go like, and we always use our buddy Scott Greiner. He's there. If you go to Texas and you ask, he judge, and I use that as an example because he judges as many majors as anybody over the past so many years. But most of those families that have been showing at the Texas majors, Ryan, irregardless of what species he's coming into, it's not a big question what direction he's going to go. And I don't think very many of them ever argue about where his priorities are or his consistency. No. And that isn't because of one show. It's because he's done multiple of them that way.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. That's what I mean by consistency. I don't mean, no, at a county fair, you're going to not be able to consistent because there's just not the number of animals, and there's not the quality of animals to be consistent at those things. And I get that. But I meant show after show after show, that judge goes out there and strives to find the same type, the same kind. And even though it may not be in droves, that same type, same time ultimately wins out when it is there for that person to choose from. And so that's what I mean by being consistent. But you're talking about the commercial thing. Okay. And again, if there is somebody out there that is judging a show that's more commercially oriented and I'm there showing, my cattle are going to get the shit beat out of them. Let's just put it that way, okay?
But you're aware of it.
But that's fine as long as he's consistent, she's consistent, and then they describe them accurately. Okay? I know not to go back and show to that person, or if I have to show to that person, I need to either dial back my expectations or find a different type of animal if I can. Okay? That's part of the game. But no, I don't have a problem with that because again, it's an opinion. But I think that the people that just like, well, this person sucks because they use this kind and I like this kind. That's just wrong. And I see more and more of that now. You're talking about things that affect it. When you judge as many shows as I do, I think this whole thing about being unique, it comes out even more. Because, again, the number of shows that I judge are just really, really a lot. And so when you see those unique qualities and things that you don't see at every show, that you judge day after day after day, they stand out more. That is part of my environment, my circumstances, that other people, very few other people will have that.
Agreed. And I think, and again, we just keep going back to that environment. And I think even certain, and maybe not as much now as it was at one time, but I can think back to my childhood or college days, depending on what part of the country that judge was from and maybe what environment their cattle, where we use cattle as an example, had to survive in, that maybe would impact the frame size that judge is going to be in the breeding shows or their environment. We go back to that breeder, whatever they're selecting for. Well, there's definitely different types of cattle from a commercial sense that work differently in different parts of the country or regions. So it's almost impossible if we try to pretend. And here's what Ryan, you're saying. A lot of these people are complaining they don't like the same type of that judge did or what you did or whatever. They must be expecting that there's one animal, we're going to use cattle as an example, one steer that fits every market grid out there, from Laura's lean beef to high-end restaurant trade to whatever. And there's not, period. There is not. And there never has been. There never will be. Same thing with that one breeding female. Do you think there's one breeding female that's going to suit every environmental condition that producers have across the country? Absolutely not. That in itself should explain it.
I don't know if you're wrapped up with this or not, but this is getting long. But like the one thing that I want to talk about that you probably don't even want to, but what I care more about anything else, and I am trying to help everybody here. I think why do judges say the things they do is probably more relevant than anything else in this deal, because I really believe that at all levels, we're getting to this deal that we really aren't listening as judges. We aren't listening or paying attention to the stuff that comes out nearly as much as we need to. And the reason you need to more now than ever is because not only are more people around ringside listening to you because it's more competitive and they want to know, but also everything is on webcast or web streamed or played back or Snapchatted or videoed on a phone and put on social media. There are tenfold more people listening to every single thing you say. And I really believe now more than ever, we are paying less attention as a judging community to the words that are actually coming out of our mouths.
I like that. And you know what? I can relate this to that if I'm at a jackpot show or a county fair, a show that judge is at, and they don't think there's anybody that's maybe as educated as them or anybody that's really paying attention, they feel they can get away with it more. But you get to a point where there's ringside several breeders, other people judging shows, or that simple webcam or Facebook Live or whatever it may be. You're exactly right. There is.
Or the person that's videoing their kid that's going to send it to the breeder that's not there.
Yes. And
this is what the judge said about my animal.
No, and I think it's a different world. I don't know how many years. I mean, the past 5 years, maybe. I don't know when the big turn came.
It's definitely the last 5. But, I mean, I can sit here and I can't tell you the number of times a day. This is a day. Someone will send something to me that was said, and sometimes there will be, the animal will be there, sometimes they'll not, but even just XYZ said this about that, or you'll just hear it or whatever, and you're like, no, you can't say that. Like, I mean, and I do think this is a problem, and I think this is what, more than anything else, and I think the lower you go down in the classes, the worse it gets, because they don't think that person in 5th is listening as much as the person in 1st or whatever. But I don't think that's right. If you're going to talk it, you got to talk it as accurately as you can. And like, again, if you just want to say after the first 5 or the first whatever, as we go on down the class, good cattle, good pigs, whatever, good sheep that aren't as structurally correct, aren't as muscular, and not talk one individually, that's fine. Okay? I don't think the people that are, 5th and lower are going to be happy, but there's lots of people that do that, and that's fine. But if you're going to talk someone's animal, we just can't use basic terms that really don't make, because again, it's not just that person listening. There are tenfold more people listening on different apparatuses than ever before. And I think there is less attention paid and less care given to actually describing those animals right now than ever before. And I think it's a problem. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a problem.
I don't know how you expect the families that are sitting that fifth or sixth or whatever,
but it happens
to learn or to understand. No, I agree. I'm saying that you have to do your best to describe the good and the bad, just from a learning experience.
But Dale, we only taught the top 5 in sheep and goats at most all deals.
True.
Now I go through and everybody that gets pulled, I say, this is what was good, this was what was bad. But that is kind of where we're at in a sheep and goat or a hog thing. It is kind of, we talk the top 5 and go. But I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, but
I think part of the top and the top 5 at those, and I'm going to defend it a little bit. And again, I think if you can, you need to talk that exhibitor, time permitting, all those other things. But I think part of the top 5 is once we get below that, as judges in general, we tend to, it's hard to say as much positive without sounding repetitive, and there's so much negative that we want to stay away from it. So I get it a little bit, but we still, if possible, that exhibitor needs to know the good and the bad if we can give it.
Which, when I just said we could talk the top 5 and you said that was bad, then when I say this is what we do, now you're coming back and defending it.
No, not that it's not bad to talk to the. I'm not.
You just said I don't know how the people fifth and lower learn.
Well, yes, and then we if we can talk to them individually. And I believe that you even mentioned that anything we can do to get information to them is good. If we're on the microphone and trying to talk 12 animals in that class, and from fifth down, there's not a lot of positive at some of these county shows or jackpot shows, that in terms of those animals, you tend to sound like, wow, we're really reaching to find something good. And that may be part of why we slip some things in there and make that animal a little better than it really is, to try to not be as offensive. And sometimes I'm sure the kid could care less or the family could care less, but those that do care, that aren't in that top 5, it would be good to give something to them.
Well, I think that you can find one redeeming trait about every animal I have been able to so far, but I don't care. I'm fine with just talking the top 5. I think that's kind of the norm in those small species, and I think that's fine. But the thing that I think, you just hit on a thing that don't want to be negative and all this stuff, where you're talking about the bottom of the class. I think this bullshit of the people just describing every class winner as perfect is bullshit. Like, it is bullshit. There has not been a perfect animal. There's not going to be a perfect animal. There are ones that are close or whatever, but every single animal has something that can be changed. I don't care how good they are. And when you don't bring that out and you're in a highly competitive class or a highly competitive breed or whatever, and you just say this one is just just roll off all the things. Or even if you say, even if this animal is heavy muscled, but that animal is not the heaviest muscled one in that class, like I will say, I just did at the Kentucky State Fair. I just said, of the top 3, this is the lightest muscled steer in this class, but he is not a light muscled steer. I don't think there's anything wrong with calling that out. I'm still using the calf. I still think he's the best one. But of the top 3 in that class, that calf didn't have as much muscle as the next 2. What is wrong with describing the animal for exactly what they are, for all the positives and the flaws? What is wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with it, as long as we're not just focusing on the flaws, and I don't believe that's what you're getting at by any means.
No, I'm not saying that we list 5 things wrong with the class winner, only say he wins, but this is what's wrong with him. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
This argument goes back long into history, and you can go back to judging teams. There was a time at one of the major universities, it was very competitive, never criticized an animal in their judging reasons. So there's just a lot of different opinions on how you come about that, and I personally agree with you. I think I'm maybe, and some people say I say too much negative about those top animals, but I'm with you. I think just describe them exactly as you see them and be within a positive realm. But you do need to talk the good and the bad in justifying that. That is, to me, how you justify what you're doing. But there are the opinions of some out there, and depending on, and it goes back to maybe some of the livestock judging coaches. And this goes way back in history of the show ring or livestock judging, but there has been times that people don't think you should. We go back into where all the open shows used to have a sale, and a very good sale, and especially in the pig arenas, that those judges were a little more conscious about being too negative because that animal's selling pretty soon. So there's a lot of reasons for it, and why it maybe happens. But yeah, I'm open as long as they're accurate. I prefer to hear the good and bad, but it is what it is.
And everybody's got their own style and can do what they want. But I do know that a lot of people enjoy listening to me give reasons, and a lot of people think that I am very, very accurate. And I think that is one of the reasons, is because there's a lot of times you're going to have to use something to win because it's the best animal, in your opinion, but something needs to be fixed. And I'm going to say what needs to be fixed. And I think that is a big difference between me and a lot of other people, and I think it's been very well received.
I think everybody has their own style, and that's been very popular for you. And I agree with that style, but I'm just saying that I am probably more open that other people may look at it differently and for their own reasons. And it is what it is. That's their choice, but it's easy for me.
I do just want to stress that I think if you're going to take the job and you're going to accept the job and you're going to go out there and whatever, hopefully you're doing it for the right reasons that we talked about, not the wrong and whatever. And you're not letting your environment influence you in the wrong direction, and you're letting your environmental experiences and what you grew up with influence your judging decisions because that's what you like, that's what you appreciate, not because somebody's bidding on you. But most importantly, I think everybody that judges, including me, I think we have to be so careful about what we say these days, because it is not just that little crowd at the county fair. It is not whatever. Like, you really have to pay attention to what you say, because it's, I'm telling you, I get examples of it every day, and I'm going to get off my soapbox and move on.
Okay, I also want to remind everyone that we intend to do an entire episode on question and answer here in the near future. So please submit those, ideally through the Beyond the Ring Facebook page. Any avenue is fine, but that's the easiest for me to retrieve those. So please continue to send question and answers. We're going to continue to do them each episode, but we're going to have one episode completely dedicated to that upon request from many, many of our listeners. With that, it is time for question and answer. The first
Yay.
is, the first one's short. Hi there. First of all, absolutely love the podcast. Do you have any videos you recommend on fitting? And they just stopped at fitting, but it was a cattle profile or a steer in the profile. So I'm going to say fitting cattle.
I would say in general, Google is your friend. And whether it's sheep, goats, whatever, I know that there are, I don't want to name one person over the other, but there are fitting schools that I'm sure have instructional videos for sale and stuff like that. But I would find it difficult, because not only because I know a lot of people that are involved in this, and I think they're all very good at what they do. I have not viewed any of the videos, nor have I attended any of the seminars. So for me to give an opinion on which one, I'm not going there. I would say Google is your friend, and Google instructional show cattle fitting, etc. And a lot of stuff, good stuff would come up.
No, but I think that's good. And to get yourself started, if you've never fit before and your family's coming into this, I think that the video clinics, whatever it is, any video opportunities that you can find on Google is a very, very good place to start. But that is it. It's a good place to start. You're going to have to go and watch in person, and you're going to have to do it yourself. It's going to be a much longer learning curve than maybe what you think. You can go watch a video on selling real estate, and maybe you'll be able to learn everything you need from that. But this is just going to give you the basics and give you some idea on the direction you're going. Then go watch in person, ask questions, get involved. You're going to make mistakes, start doing it yourself. And it's just a learning curve. So yep. Yeah. And if I knew of that perfect video, I would say, I just don't know. The next one comes from Ashley. Reflecting on the Supreme Heifer Drive at the Missouri State Fair, as well as a year of jackpot showing, I realized that it's getting harder to distinguish between breeds. Are we breeding so much for the perfect heifer that we're losing breed characteristics. How often are purebreds winning shows? Why breed purebreds? Maybe I'm overthinking it. What are your thoughts? It's a lot of questions in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions there. And I understand what this person is saying, because more than not, the breeds are black, or predominantly black now, if not all black. And I think, and she's talking about a heifer show. And so I think, and we've discussed this on here before, I do think that we are kind of morphed into something that this is kind of basically the basic bones or parts and pieces of what we think an ideal breeding heifer is. And so I can get where she's saying, there's 12 black ones out here and they all kind of look the same. Are we losing breed character? I don't know if you're losing breed character as much, because like if you get down to it, I judge a lot of shows where there's like just stuff in AOB, and even though there may be 6 black ones in a 10 class, I walk up to is that a limb flex? Well, no, she's a percentage limb. Okay. Is this a main? Yes. I can still get pretty close by looking at their head and stuff like that. So I think that breed character's still there. I don't know if everybody is quite as in tune with those things as some, but I think the thing is that if those breeds, and I've said this a lot, every single one of those breeds, regardless if it's a pig, a cattle, whatever, they offer something unique to this industry, and it matters, because if they didn't have a unique trait or set of traits that they offer that no other breed could, they still wouldn't be here. And so,
other than the show ring, when I can think of some of the minor pig breeds, that is the only reason they're here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so that's why they're here. And so, yeah, I mean, I get exactly what this listener is saying. Yeah, they probably do from a distance look a lot alike. And maybe that's a problem to some. I think more than anything, it's probably a color thing and not a real breed character thing. Would you agree with that, Dale?
I think so. And Ashley, I think historically my answer to you is absolutely yes. If we go back far enough, no question. But within recent history, I lean a little towards what Ryan's talking about. And I think when we go from full-blood animals, whether it be semis or mains or whatever it is, and from the time that we started to open the books up and allow a percentage or whatever percent they so choose to be shown, well, then there's it's just common sense. They're going to look like a blend of whatever breed was brought in to try to make that certain animal. And I think that Ashley's talking about a little bit, and maybe this is in my mind, that we are trying a lot of times as judges, and this fits into our episode a little bit, we do have an image of a female in our mind that we kind of like. And sometimes we get caught up in that image, irregardless of what that breed is. And maybe you're reflecting back that at one point, I think there was more talk that a scimitar should look like this, a mane should look like this, and they looked more different in that champion drive than they do now. I absolutely see that. I don't know what's right or wrong. I know that when there was more of a commercial tie to the show ring and those breeds that represented in the show ring, the reason that we needed the differences in the breeds is that in general, people could go grab a scimitar for A, B, and C traits, or grab an Angus for this. And I don't know that we can do that as much as we used to, but I think there's a total disconnect now from the show ring to the commercial world. So I don't know that it matters. But yeah, I think it's a good question, Ryan. I think that you hit it fairly strongly, that perception is from outside. I don't know when I'm looking from outside. If you're up in the stands and you're looking at 4 or 5 black heifers out there, I mean, yeah, maybe I could venture to guess this one's this and that, but it's actually, it's hard. I'm with you.
No, and it is. And I mean, and just going back to the very first time I went to Louisville, I'll just share a quick story. Very first time I went to Louisville, I walked into Freedom Hall, and Keys and Saliers were showing on either side. And from a distance, both classes were solid black heifers. I didn't know which one side was the Keys and which one side was Saliers. And it shocked me more than anything because I didn't know a black Salier existed back then. They were all the ones I had seen were red. And so that I get what she's saying. But so this has been way back then. Now, of course, as soon as I got down the ramp and on the green ships, yes, I knew exactly which side was the Slayers and which side was the Gays. But and then another thing that contributes to this, as Dale alluded, we go from full-blood animals to what we consider purebreds, and now almost every major breed association allows a percentage part to this, whether they call them Sim Solutions or Shorthorn Pluses or, I don't even know what the Red Angus call there now, but I mean, almost every major breed now recognizes a percentage from component down from the purebred, which is down from the full blood. So when you continue to do that, they're going to look more similar.
Absolutely. So I admit, Ryan, I don't even have to go back to the first time I was at Louisville. I can walk into shows today, and if I'm not looking pretty close, I'm not sure which breed we're in until you get up closer to them. But just at a glance, you can be confused, and I don't take any shame in that. It just is what it is. The last question comes from Kevin. My entire family, I don't know how many family members he has, but my entire family loves your guys' podcast. I especially enjoyed last week's episode defining professional fitters. I don't know, did we define them? I think it
was professional. No, and that was a lot of whatever. What is a professional fitter? I guess we didn't do that enough because I saw that a lot on social media, and somebody said it is somebody that takes money for fitting animals. I'm going to go on the record and say that is not my definition of a professional fitter, and I'll clear this up for everybody. My definition of a professional fitter is someone that is not an ag teacher, a county agent, or a family member working on someone else's animal. That is what I consider a professional fitter, whether you get money or not.
See, I can consider some of those county agents and ag teachers professional fitters.
I can too, and I said that too. But I'm talking. Okay, so some of them that go work on kids from their other county, then they're a professional fitter. But I don't think it has anything to do with taking money. That's what I'm getting at.
The term professional that is the definition, whether it's professional sports or whatever profession.
Then maybe the title should have just been fitters instead of professional fitters.
I don't disagree with taking money, but I think it's anybody.
I don't disagree with taking money at all. I'm the one that said this is still America. I mean, you should be able to get paid for something you're good at, but that is not how I define it. Yes, is all I'm saying.
And I also think that heck, if your family member is a professional fitter or one of the best there is, well, that's probably an advantage too. So I'm going to go back to the question. Sorry, Kevin. So week's episode, defining professional fitters. Please summarize what you consider to be the best attributes of the professional fitter and the worst.
I think the best attributes are the fact that number one, again, and I'm going to say this again, these people didn't learn this skill overnight. They grew up in this program and they like it and they want to continue to do it. And so that's why they are still out there. And whether they're getting paid or not, you are still helping whatever junior exhibitor you're working on, whether you want to call it a fitter, a professional fitter or not, because that animal is getting presented to a higher level than what they would if it was just, that's why these people sought them out. So I think that, number one, they're a product, the program's good. Number two, I think if they are like the majority, and I will say this is the majority, that want to help that mom or dad or help that kid learn how to do it themselves, give them tips, work with them on how to do it, work with them on stuff more than just grooming a leg or clipping an animal, daily care, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. And again, I know a lot of people, and this will be the third one on the good thing. I know a lot of people that y'all call these professional fitters or whatever. Those people are as much family members to some people that they help as anybody, because family's not always blood. And I had those people in my life. I know lots of people that have had that same connection with people like that. So those would be three positive things. I'll let Dale can handle the negative because he's more negative on it than I am.
You don't want to even give one negative.
I think that there is a smaller segment of the population that probably is what you call a fitter, a professional fitter, that is more in it for them to be at the backdrop than they care about the kid or the animal being at the backdrop.
Fair enough. Okay, I like the positives that you brought out, Ryan, and I'm gonna answer both sides of this. And
I knew you were going to answer the negative side.
And I think we'll use Ryan as an example. You would consider our manager Craig and even possibly my daughter Tara as professional fitters if they're going around the country helping people fit their animals.
They don't take no money.
Yeah, even though but they're still defined as professional fitters. So with that, I'm going to take the positive, and you already talked about this. That is probably on the good professional fitters, whatever you don't want to find at, the good people that are going out there that have experience and are willing to share that experience, not just with how to fit that animal, maybe a recommendation on feeding or management. I think there's a wealth of information that they can pass on to that exhibitor or that exhibitor's family. No question. That's easy. That to me, that's that sharing of information and teaching them how to better manage their project, whether it's anything to do with fitting or not, or everything else. That's where my positive attributes come into play. In that relationship that they build with those families, same thing that you talked about. It's not always blood that's family. I believe that all of those things. On a negative side, and I tend to take the opposite of where Ryan is for discussion purposes as well. I don't believe whether some people are going to say, well, it's not fair. Well, life isn't fair. And I think you covered that well last time. I do understand that some families may not be able to justify the expense if they have to pay for a professional fitter to come in. I get it. I understand that. And there's one other thing, and I'm gonna put it out there. And I think I'm accurate. I know that I'm accurate. I've been in this industry too long to not have witnessed this, that there's a small percentage of what we term professional fitters that are responsible for propagating a large amount of the unethical practices that are out there being performed.
And I will agree with that completely.
And not because I'm not saying that breeders don't do it or anything like that. I'm just saying they tend to have, there's a small percentage of them that have that knowledge base and are sharing with others. And quite frankly, if it's not their name showing that animal, they're not that family, there's minimal repercussions if they get in trouble for doing such. With the show.
Well, let's just be real honest. There's real minimal repercussions for the people that get caught right now anyway, but period. But I agree with what you say that yes. And I will say of that small population of professional fitters, I do think they have a hand in a large part of the unethical practices that happen. Now, here is what I don't know for a fact about. And so therefore, what I don't know is how many of those families know that they're doing it and how many do not.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
That's the one thing, because, and I don't think you'll ever know because no one's going to be honest with you about that.
If you're that involved in your project,
I'm with you. I think
there's no way you would not know.
I think if you're that involved, then it would be very hard to not know. But again,
there are families that are not very involved, and maybe that fitter's taking care. Maybe there are, I'm sure, situations, but not an educated, intelligent livestock family that's in the barn every day. On that situation, there's no way they're unaware. Now, is that young child maybe unaware? Yes.
But I've seen this happen too. And again, so right, wrong, or indifferent, this is going to be a terrible example, but it's still going to be an example. You work with this person. We did this on this one sheep, goat, pig, calf, whatever. We all agreed it was fine. Well, then on another one, they did something, may not be the same thing, but since we did it on this last one, or he said okay to do this here, so surely this will be. And then it wasn't, and then it turned into a fiasco and a disaster. And so, again, there's just so much that small little segment of what we deem fitters or professional fitters, in terms of the unethical practices, it just really is a bad thing for the industry overall.
I think if that segment didn't exist, I think people would have a much different opinion of the professional fitters.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you too. Yeah.
And I think I saw that on social media, something about after dark and flashlights. And I don't know if you saw that comment. I think
yeah, and I didn't see them all, but yeah. And again, not defending whatever, but like more than just fitters work with flashlights after dark at stock shows. Okay. There are people in every brokers, breeders, parents, fitters, whatever, and none of it's good, but yeah, it's not just them, but yeah. I would say I agree with Dale that the larger percentage that does the after hours work, or however you want to describe it, probably are what we call or what we label professional fitters.
Excellent. Well, I hope it was maybe educational, if not educational, entertaining. I hope you got some value out of listening today.
It was very long. That's all I know.
That's what I just looked up the clock.
It's very long.
Clifton is going to charge us extra, I'm afraid. That's my
very
concern.
long.
With that, until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?